So we now have episode 14 of the 7th season of Fear the Walking Dead. This is actually our 99th episode of the entire series, but if you haven't seen this episode yet and you don't want to get spoiled for you, do not listen to this review, because this review is going to contain full spoilers for the episode. You've been warned. So this definitely feels like this was the episode we've been building up to for the entire season. Episode 13, I was led to believe to be a lot better because I was a week behind everyone else. So everyone was going on about how great that episode was. So I went into that and I felt a bit underwhelmed with it. And I think it's safe to say with this one, I felt underwhelmed with it as well. The trailer led to this for me to believe that it was a big action-packed episode. Now, I'm not gonna lie, there was action in this, but I was so frustrated with the characters in this episode that it really has tarnished this episode. The action, it was fine, it wasn't amazing, but just what we see in this episode has really pissed me off with Fear the Walking Dead. This season as a whole has been, I wouldn't say the worst season of Fear the Walking Dead. I'd say season 5 would probably still own that title, but what we've seen so far this season is just massively disappointing, and I really hope for season 8 they can turn things around, because what we've got so far with 7 has not been good. And I'm not going to sit here and say this is the worst episode of the season so far. I'd say the worst episode probably will still go to episode 10, which of course is Charlie's episode, but this episode had so much promise and so much that the whole season has been building up to, and it just felt so anticlimactic. The episode mostly follows Alicia and Strand while they're kind of getting over all their differences they've had in this season, mostly this season, where Alicia gets invited in by Strand to have a drink, and then Daniel follows her in because Daniel he's been told that Ophelia, his daughter, of course, is in the building, and then he goes in there because the whole reason Daniel had come here was to try and get Ophelia out, to go in there. And it's revealed that the only reason Strand let Alicia in was because he wanted to keep her safe, but then he turns the light on to the top of the tower to lure in all of the radiated walkers. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he wasn't the reason the radiated walkers got out. I'm pretty sure he never specifically said that he was the one who let them out, but he does say they've been let out, they have found them, they're making their way here at the moment. So he brought Alicia in to keep her safe while the light's going on, and then it becomes a whole negotiation where Alicia and him are fighting on, no, you can't let our people die because your people, going back and forth, the typical Fear the Walking Dead stuff for this season. And then Alicia gets Strand's gun off of his side, points it at him, and then it becomes a standstill where all of the other soldiers are pointing the gun at Alicia while Alicia points the gun at Strand. Then Alicia backs up into the elevator holding onto Strand while Wes and the other two soldiers are downstairs. Once they get into the elevator, Alicia starts to get a bit dizzy. She collapses Strand and holds the sword up against her throat, and then they actually get to talking, and Alicia says, I will join your group, I will live here in the tower with you as long as you shut off those lights, that's all. And then he goes, yep, works out well. So then they immediately come up to this agreement where Alicia's going to join. Once Strand tells his people, Wes, who of course is his number 2 at this point in time, immediately gets annoyed by this and then starts off a pretty big revolution. First up, Wes points the gun at Strand and says, I'm in charge, I'm going to take over, you can't do this, Strand. Seriously, Strand, cop on. Why would you think that working with her is going to work? A big argument then ensues between the two of them, and once Strand's like, oh, what do you mean? These are my soldiers. The most cringiest thing. The soldiers then who stop pointing at Wes point the guns now at Strand, and it's just like, wow, who the fuck decided this? This is just absolutely terrible. I was uncontrollably rolling my eyes at this stage, and it was just frustrating to actually watch this. Strand and Alicia do end up getting away, but as I was watching this episode, my biggest takeaway was, why did they bring Wes in, I want to say 2 episodes ago, make him a villain out of nowhere? Because for the most part he's pretty much been a sideline character since season 6, where they just decided to bring him in and take Howard's position. Why didn't they just keep Howard alive? It's like Howard died in episode 11, I want to say, maybe even 12. I think it was 12 Howard died in. Why didn't they just keep him alive for 2 extra episodes and have this turn be with Howard rather than Strand? Because Howard was so devoted to Strand, you'd be understanding more why he was going. Why would you waste this amazing opportunity you have on Alicia? I would believe it turned more from Howard, and it really baffles me why they decided to kill off Howard when they did, when this character storyline seems perfect for him. It's a baffling decision they have made. So since Strand now agrees with Alicia and wants to turn off the lights so he can bring all those people in, stop the walkers from coming in, he immediately realizes that since everyone's against him, they're not going to make it to the roof. They need some sort of help to get there, so he goes down to the prison cell to meet Daniel. And we get a pretty close scene with Daniel where he's talking to the guard and he says, "Oh, you learn something new every day, and today you're going to learn to not handcuff someone in the front. When you handcuff someone, you got to do it from behind." Because then Daniel immediately starts to choke this man to death in quite a brutal scene. Then Strand comes down. They tell Daniel that his daughter's not here and the fact that he needs to work with him. Daniel gets annoyed and they say, "Sorry, Daniel, Ophelia is here. She's actually on the roof." Again, using Daniel. You can understand to a point of view while they're doing this because they kind of need Daniel to help them, but it's also just, there's such a bad thing to do. Why would you do this to a man who's clearly suffering here? He believes it himself. He kind of knows his daughter isn't here, but he really, really wants to believe his daughter's still alive, and the fact that they're doing this for him, it's just plain horrible. It's a horrible thing they're doing, but they start to make their way up. They get up to the infirmary because Alicia needs medical supplies. We actually catch a glimpse of Charlie in the background who looks terrible. She's wearing a scarf on her head. I don't know if that's because she's lost her hair from radiation, but it's quite a brutal scene. Strand says, "There's your daughter," saying that Charlie's Ophelia, and then Daniel of course loses his shit, starts pointing a gun at Strand, getting ready to kill Strand. And I can't be the only one who at this point was saying, can one of you just kill the other at this stage? We've seen this whole dance between the two of them where one must kill the other literally since season 1 now of the show, and it's just, can someone just kill the other? Like, Strand literally shot Daniel in the face one stage. I was hoping when Daniel came back his entire cheek would be scarred up to bits, but for the most part there's nothing really there in his face that kind of symbolises that he got shot in the face. But I was just sitting there going, can one of you just kill the other? Because I am so fed up with this back and forth between I kill you, you kill me. I'm just fed up with that, and I kind of want something different. So I was hoping that one of them would actually kill the other, but then Alicia talks Daniel down, of course, to them. Neither of them kill the other. Daniel sits down with Charlie, and they just sit there talking how Daniel doesn't want to go help Strand and Alicia now because he feels like his place is just with Charlie, doesn't want to go off, and Alicia and Strand have a good heart-to-heart, which really makes you feel like, well, if it made me feel like anyways, are they now trying to redeem Strand? Do they want Strand to continue on past season 7? Which I, and like everyone, was expecting Strand to die in season 7. But now I'm not quite sure, because him and Alicia, they start to redeem him. By the end of the episode it changes. But he tells Alicia that he loves her and that he sees her as a daughter. And by the end of the episode it makes you think, will he die? But it could be a heart-to-heart they were just having there, but it feels weird now that they're trying to redeem him after everything they've done this season. They've done so much to make you try and hate Strand after watching 6 seasons of him as a somewhat good guy, when Strand has never really been a good guy. He's always been right down the middle, but they feel like they've done everything they could this season to make you dislike Strand, so when he dies you don't care and you're glad to see him die. Where in this episode it's trying to make a conflict where I've always, since season 7 started and this whole rumor, I would have been disappointed if Strand died. He's one of my favourite characters. I think Coleman Domingo is a fantastic actor. Every time I see him show up and stuff, whether it's Candyman last year or he was in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, I love seeing him show up and things, and I'd be disappointed to see him come off the show. But the way his character's going, I think the only way his character could go is him to die, but I feel like they're kind of redeeming him, and I don't know what's actually going to happen here. But a character who I cannot stand, and I was happy to see die in this episode, was of course Wes. He's been a character that, as far as I know, he got introduced in season 5, and he's never left a memorable mark on the show. There's nothing about him that stands out besides the fact that he looks a bit like Heat from the original Walking Dead show. There's nothing about this character that's memorable or likable. He kind of had a bit of a relationship that looked like it was forming with Alicia. Nothing ever ended up going there. But in this episode, and actually last week's episode as well, I just couldn't stand the character. All of last week's, every time he came up against Dwight and Sherry, I was thinking, why the hell are they not just killing him? What's the point in keeping him alive? And in this episode, we actually finally get to see Strand kill Wes. And it was just so... I like how he killed him. I thought it was cool where it was kind of... He was going to kill Alicia because he knew Strand couldn't do it. And then Strand comes in and stabs him in the chest. I thought the way the scene was played out was cool. I thought the death scene, it was so quiet. It was so... like, you can't see it coming. But I was also thinking, like... I couldn't get over it. I really couldn't get over it. The whole episode in general, I just thought it was such a bad episode. It was just really, really disappointing. I thought we do end up seeing Daniel get shot in the chest, and to me it looked like he got shot in the heart, or close enough to the heart. I hope they don't play it off where he got shot in the shoulder, because that bullet was quite low, but he seems to be okay. Even towards the end of the episode, we do see him leave the tower, walk a good bit to meet the group, and he just seems fine. He's been shot, but he seems fine. It's just baffling how Daniel is fine. But we do see the Walker herd making their way to the group. You see Wendell, Grace, and June make their way out, reunite with the group. You see Sarah and Wendell reunite for, I want to say, the first time since like season 5. We haven't seen them on screen together in ages. I remember it was this season, most people kind of assumed he died. From memory, he wasn't even in season 6, so I honestly didn't really care if he died or not. But to see them reunite, it was fine. It wasn't like a big reuniting scene where people are expecting. I know it's a completely different thing, but like Rick and Daryl, people want to see that reunited scene. Or even the reuniting scene where Daryl and Carol reunited in season 5, episode 1, where after Carol was gone for a while, where they just ran and embraced each other. This one felt very much like it was more a background reuniting scene. It was just very anticlimactic. But while they're up there, our group are all reuniting. They're contemplating what to do. Strand is hesitating, turning off the light, and this is where you see Alicia go, you haven't changed. You're just still the same old guy. They start to fight. Alicia goes to punch him with her sword kind of hand. It gets stuck in a barrel of petrol. She pulls it out. They have a big fight scene. They actually don't end up switching off the light. Instead, they end up destroying the light, which Alicia then decides to climb the tower so she can send out her signal to let everyone know what's happening there. I imagine the only thing this is going to amount to is Madison. There's nothing else. I can feel like this is just feels like such a drawn out story. She spent pretty much the entire season trying to send out a signal, a radio message, all this now, and it's just like, I can't believe all of the season has been building up to this moment. But you do see the entirety of the roof catch fire. Our group has made it into the building. The walkers who are outside, who that if you touch, you're going to get radiated. I don't understand how that's okay, but you see Daniel touch Charlie. I imagine June has touched Charlie because for some reason the radiation rules are completely different in Fear the Walking Dead than in our real life here. But so as of right now, at the end of episode 14, our group is at the bottom of the tower. Alicia has passed out on top of the tower with fire burning all around her. Strand is sitting there screaming at her. And that's the end of the episode. And it was honestly a bad episode. I did have a few moments I liked, but overall the character decisions were just baffling. It was so stupid. You see a point where Strand walks into a room. Wes and the guys see him. They say, Strand, stand down. Strand says no. They start shooting him. Strand just runs out of the room and no one follows him. He runs out of the room and that's the end of the scene. He then reunites with Alicia, where there's been no chase of them chasing him down because there was like 3 people there. If they chased him, they would have caught him. It's just, honestly, it was just really, really badly written, this episode. Really annoying. Next week's episode, or episode 15, is episode 100. I would be genuinely shocked if Madison doesn't return this episode. In the trailer, you do hear Morgan talking, so Morgan's going to come back because, of course, it would be weird if Morgan wasn't in episode 100. He's been the main character since season 4. He's been the main character longer than Madison was. So I'm expecting we're going to see Madison reunite with Alicia. I'm assuming Strand's going to die. Alicia, I really don't know. I'd be very, very disappointed if Alicia ends up dying here in episode 100 of the show. It kind of seems like, it really does seem like they're kind of pointing in that direction that Alicia will die. I really hope she doesn't die, but again, it does seem like they're going that way. But I'm expecting to see Madison in next week's episode. The trailer shows them outside of the tower a lot, so I don't really know what to expect. But other than then seeing Morgan come back and Madison come back, that's all I'm really expecting from this episode. But let me know your thoughts on episode 14 in the comment section down below. Do you agree with me or disagree with me? Do you think this is a great episode or a bad episode? I'd actually be interested to hear other people's opinion on this, because for me, I didn't like this episode. But if you want to see future Walking Dead reviews for me, like episode 15, which again, Madison probably is going to show up here. So if you want to hear my thoughts on the return of Madison, click the subscribe button. And as always, thanks for watching.